This week in Boomtown, we head out to Hilliard. It's pretty hard to miss a massive new development set to open later this year.
We're creating a destination.
The next big city center springing up in the suburbs. Plus, solar grazing, a concept about a decade old, is giving farmers some new opportunities. See how this booming biz of harvesting energy from the sun could help feed the Ohio landscape. And banking on the boom of Ohio State. What does winning the national championship mean when it comes to dollars, recruitment, and bragging rights? What a month it has been, and we're only just starting 2025. A lot of new announcements this week in Boomtown, from Link Us to proposed taxes to a major tax incentive for Ohio's newest company. All of it to help seek solutions with more than 1 million people moving to this region in the coming decades. So, here's what we uncovered this week in Boomtown.
And again, it's Ohio State, last team standing. And Ryan Day, a national champion.
Well, it is a win we just can't get enough of. OSU taking home the College Football Playoff National Championship trophy. And Buckeye Nation couldn't be more proud.
And you better know that the best damn team in the land resides right here in Columbus, and the national championship trophy is back where it belongs in the great state of Ohio.
Boy, doesn't that look pretty. Well, it is no secret Ohio State is a huge draw for Central Ohio, bringing tens of thousands of students every year. Thanks for joining us on This Week in Boomtown. I'm Angela Ann. But just how much of an impact does Buckeye football really have? We'll dive deep into the numbers here shortly, but first, we turn our focus to the suburbs. As Columbus grows, so do the suburbs around it, and in some cases, faster than the capital city itself. One of those suburbs is Hilliard. That city's population has grown double the rate of Columbus. Hilliard is now planning a new city center called True Point, and it'll bring new housing to keep up with the growing population. As Carla Rogner tells us, city leaders hope this will really draw in more people.
When you drive past Hilliard on 270, it's hard to miss the signs of progress. The parking garages and buildings you see are part of a $285 million development called True Point.
So it's an incredibly recognizable location. True Point will become known as a place.
Steve Wathen is the CEO of Equity, the Hilliard-based developer leading the project.
We're creating a destination for Hilliard as well, right? A reason for people to come to our side of town.
Once construction is complete, Wathen shared these photos of what True Point will look like. Office space for Advanced Drainage Solutions, one of Hilliard's largest employers, along with hundreds of apartments and condos, restaurants, and shopping. At 5 stories, True Point will be Hilliard's tallest building. David Meadows is Hilliard's economic development director. He says the city is embracing density as it grows.
Suburbs have also realized that developing outward costs a lot of money too. So it's a lot of new roads, it's a lot of new water lines and sewer lines. So it makes a lot of sense to try to have some density with what you're doing just to prevent future costs.
Do you think this project will put a lot of money back into the city?
Yeah, not only did it maintain a pretty important part of our tax base, but the expansion that they're doing, and then there's another office building that's planned for the site as well that will really help add to our economy.
Hilliard is modeling its plans for development with inspiration from other Central Ohio cities, like Dublin's Bridge Park, which has seen success in building an urban city center. Construction on Bridge Park began in 2015 and is still growing, now planning to develop another block east on Bridge Park Avenue. For Jay Seafring,
there's just so much to do here. Lots of energy, lots of good people, easy parking.
It's become an ideal neighborhood to work in.
So it has its own energy about it that's very different than the rest of the parts of Columbus.
And for Trinity Siebert,
there's a little bit of everything.
It's a destination to meet up with friends or colleagues.
Everything's so close together in Bridge Park that you can kind of just hop from place to place without having to lift somewhere else.
That's the goal for True Point, to be a destination, to bring people to Hilliard or keep them there.
We're kind of creating that environment where Hilliard can be the place where you start out, but also the place where you can have a career and raise a great family.
Reporting in Hilliard, Carla Rogner, 10 TV News.
Carla, thanks for that. Now, True Point is set to open later this year, but the whole project could take years to see that vision all the way through. Well, moving people around Central Ohio got quite the boost this week. COTA approved funding for the first of 5 bus rapid transit lines.
If you don't want to use transit, that's fine, but we want people to have an option to do so. So if you're not using transit, you won't have the congestion on the highways, and those who want to use transit can get where they need to be just as efficiently as if they were driving their car.
COTA says BRT is similar to a light rail system, except on wheels instead of tracks. Now, the money comes from the Linkers initiative people in Franklin County passed back in November. This first line will run through West Broad Street from downtown Columbus. COTA says these lines will cost hundreds of millions of dollars, but they will help tackle significant congestion on the roads, all because of this rapid growth that we're seeing. So here's what we know about the other 4 rapid transit lines that COTA is planning to build. One will follow East Main Street to connect downtown Columbus to Reynoldsburg. Another will connect downtown to Dublin. And the final 2 locations, well, those have yet to be determined. Well, now to Delaware, where this week City Council talked about a plan that could cost you more on your taxes next year. This comes after a levy failed on the November ballot that would have brought in millions of dollars for infrastructure. 10 TV's Colin Dorsey is looking into why that city is considering this move.
Delaware has been growing for years, almost doubling in size since 2000. But also growing is a backlog of street and infrastructure repairs, all costing money. November's levy would have generated $7.6 million per year through a tax increase to address this and support other city services like EMS and fire. When it failed, sights were set on the city's 50% tax credit to those working outside of the city, something outlined in that tax levy last year. For example, at Delaware's current tax rate, a Delaware resident making $75,000 at a job in Columbus pays about $694 to Delaware thanks to that tax credit. Without that credit, they owe the full amount of nearly $1,390. 80% of the population leaves the city for work, including Megan Sinelli, a VA nurse.
What would that mean to you that you have to pay extra on your tax bill?
Well, I don't think that's right because we're going to get hit doubly.
It's been a hot topic at recent council meetings, too.
And if you don't listen to the people of this city, they will find someone else to reflect their voice and their concerns.
We didn't want the levy to fail, we wanted the levy to pass, but this is an alternative to plug about a $1.7 million hole in our capital improvement budget.
Councilmember Lindsey Griffith sent me this statement today, which read in part, I do not support repealing the tax credit, but I do support major policy shifts to increase and diversify Delaware's tax base for the benefit of our citizens. It's far from being a set decision. At the last meeting, Council discussed other options of making up for the failure of that levy.
In Delaware, Colin Dorsey, 10 TV News.
Colin, thank you. And he says if it does pass, the taxes will not go into effect until 2026. Now, something we know is happening is this, a huge tax incentive to support what's being called the largest single job creation in Ohio's history. The Ohio Tax Credit Authority approved a 30-year tax break for Anduril Industries. This is valued at $450 million, so long as the weapons company delivers on its promise of 4,000 new jobs. Governor Mike DeWine released a statement following that tax incentive approval, saying in part, these incentives are propelling Ohio into a future defined by innovation, cutting-edge technology, and unmatched opportunity. Now, 10 TV first told you about Anduril's investment back in mid-January. The site will be known as Arsenal One, and the average salary is $132,000. The state says this investment will strengthen Central Ohio's Silicon Heartland.
Because it sends a signal to not only other defense manufacturers, but also tech companies that Ohio is not a flyover state.
No, we're not. Well, Anduril is expected to contribute $2 billion to our economic output and will be ready to go by the year 2035. Now, we do know there are more big projects coming to Boomtown. Local bridges are getting a major revamp. This week, ODOT announced $8.7 million to modernize Ohio's bridges. More than 6.5 of that will help fix the Fishinger Road Bridge. That's in northwest Columbus. And you'll soon see new shared use paths and a new concrete on the bridge right over the Scioto River. Moving to Fairfield County, more than $1 million will help maintain the County Road 33 bridge, which is over Broad Street. Now, these projects will begin sometime in 2028. Yes, we know what that is. No other fans like Buckeye Nation. And there is no doubt the Buckeyes are big business here in Columbus. Winning the Natty was a huge deal, but the team didn't only bring home a trophy from Atlanta. They will also make $20 million off this history-making run. Ohio State President Ted Carter said winning the national championship also gave the university a long-term investment. He's talking about national exposure to the 22 million people who watch the Buckeyes take down the Fighting Irish.
It really just continues to up our brand. Our brand is one of the most recognizable in the nation already. But when you win a college football playoff and a national championship, I certainly expect we're going to see more people interested in coming to the Ohio State University.
And OSU tells us it is too soon to know the true economic impact of the national championship, but there are signs that it will be big. Last week, the Buckeyes' web traffic jumped by 215%, and online visitors to the team shop, well, they gobbled up by 325% of web traffic. Now, money from all that merch will be used to help fund student scholarships. However, it's not all good news coming out of the shoe. A new report shows a nearly $38 million deficit for OSU athletics. This was in the 2024 fiscal year. And Ohio State lost about $14 million in football ticket sales compared to the year before. 10 TV's Kara Lake read that report for This Week in Boomtown, and she says the university is blaming a major part of that deficit to the team's 2023 schedule.
So the Buckeyes played 6 home games that year after having 8 in 2022. The university is reporting that the athletics department's past earnings, reserve funds, and anticipated future earnings are projected to cover this shortfall. This includes the 8 home games in 2024, the college football playoff games, and the national championship. OSU's athletic director says in a statement, "We will make sure we operate with a balanced budget moving forward."
Thank you, Kira. And OSU says it will also use past earnings, reserve funds, and future earnings to help cover that shortfall. But again, it's hoping fans will keep flocking to the shoe for those sellout games. And one person who might be considered one of the Buckeyes' biggest fans is 10 TV's Dom DeBerry. He has seen the boom of Ohio State over the years. Now, Dom, of course, covered every big OSU story for nearly 45 years as a 10 TV sports anchor. He got to witness firsthand the Buckeyes' boom from their 2002 championship win to the one in 2014 to, of course, this past season. So here is Dom soaking it all in just moments after OSU beat Notre Dame in Atlanta.
It is raining confetti. The Buckeyes are national champions. Let the confetti rain. Yes, the Buckeyes, for the 3rd time in my career, are national champions. Wow.
Wow, indeed, Dom. And we're so glad to have you with us, joining us here on This Week in Boomtown. And I just love that video because the joy on your face is pure and just so authentic.
You know, I got goosebumps because I went out there and it was raining confetti and we weren't allowed to have any cameras out there at that time. So I said, you know what, I don't know. I was a fan at that point.
For sure.
It was just, it's, you know, the 3rd one. And, you know, I'm getting older, and I don't know how many more I got in me, but this was cool. This might be my last national
Well, let's hope
title.
not for you and the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I'd like to see them repeat next year.
Wouldn't that be nice? Now, Dom, obviously this went huge for football recruiting. We're already seeing it. What have you seen over the years when it's gone from the 2002 championship to 2014 to now?
Well, what we're witnessing now is the professionalism of college football. If there was not a 12-team playoff this year, Ohio State would not have been in the playoff. I mean, because they lost to Michigan. You think about where Ohio State football was all those years ago when it was the 10-year war and the winner of the Michigan game, Ohio State-Michigan game, got to go to the Rose Bowl. Those days are long gone, and I know the fans don't want to hear this, but the bottom line is this is professional football now at the college ranks, and while the Michigan game is always going to be big, it's not what it once was. And, the fact, and don't tell me about the sanctity of the game, they could play 3 times in a month.
Sure.
And so it's changed. It's changed so much. And, a lot of it has to do with the, NIL world, the transfer portal, all that stuff. And, I like to say the genie is out of the bottle and he's not going back in.
No, it's like the toothpaste. You can't get it back into the tube. But talk about how that helps in terms of bringing in bigger, better players, bigger sponsors, so to speak, to the whole program.
Well, you look at it this way. And I think that the northern schools will have an advantage on some of the southern schools, the SEC, and I think we're starting to see that. But Columbus, Ohio, I've always said, is the biggest college town in America. Columbus and Austin, Texas. They mirror each other. And yeah, there's college teams in Los Angeles and that, but this is a college town, and we're going to be, 3 million people before we know it.
Right.
And so the money is here. The money's in some of these schools. And, Detroit, right next to Ann Arbor, and they just paid $10 million for a quarterback to come to Michigan, one of their NIL deals. And so, yeah, it's changing. And I think, it's only going to get bigger and bigger. And, Ohio State football's always been big, but now it's to the professional level.
It's so interesting when we're seeing these video that we just saw of the players signing and they're making money off that. When you think back 20 years ago, we sat through, who was it, Tressel, who had the year vacated because they sold merchandise, and now it's okay to do that.
It's all legal now, and it's the Wild West. I don't know where any of this is going to go. I personally am not a fan of some of this stuff, but you've got kids now making millions of dollars to play college football. You got coaches. I mean, Ryan Day makes over $10 million. Coordinators are going to make close to $3 million. And, for years and years, we saw, the money going up, the television, and now you got a 12-team playoff. Eventually, they want to get to 16 teams. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes, if there's going to be a profit sharing. Because right now, the kids aren't getting any of the money from the playoff. When does that change? There's going to be a learning curve. I am going to be very interested to see how this plays out from a standpoint as who's going to govern all this, the NCAA, or is there going to be a super conference? But make no mistake about it, what we are witnessing with college football and basketball too now, the two sports that generate the most money is going to be football and basketball, men's basketball, and it's the times are changing, and like I said prior, I'm not necessarily a big fan, but this is where we're at.
We are. And you talked about football, you talked about basketball, clearly big names that's helping with that recruiting and bringing attention and the boom here to Columbus. How is that ripple effect with some of the other athletic programs?
Well,
is it helping them?
I go back to Gordon Gee. When Gordon Gee was here as president of Ohio State, he understood the importance of football, and he used football to help sell the university. And, I see all the different coaches at Ohio State. They have recruiting days at the stadium. Women's basketball, Kevin McGuff always brings in the top recruits, and they'll be at the Ohio State games. Because once you see it, I mean, if you're a soccer player or a baseball player, you come and you see that atmosphere and you see what they do on a Saturday here in Columbus, Ohio, it blows you away. And it's the greatest. It is the football program not only makes all the money and pays for all the other sports, it also helps generate the interest with the other sports, and it's the best recruiting tool they got.
It's so energizing when you feel that
Yeah.
too. You know, you talked about back in the day, right? I mean, you've covered OSU sports for 45 years. Do you feel like we're right now in a new era of OSU as we see the whole region booming?
Oh yeah, it's all new. I mean, it's in, you know, there's going to be big questions down the road. What do we do? Especially now that we're getting playoff games in December, and you know, they could go. How deep are they going to do if they expand and whatever? What do you do with Ohio Stadium? Do we need a dome down the road? I mean, these are all questions. I mean, the state of Ohio does not have a dome. Think about it.
Yeah.
Now, I go back when, you know, we had Ohio Stadium, but I remember, think about this. I remember when the only Coliseum or arena we had was the Fairgrounds Coliseum. Think about that. I remember when that was it. You know, that was the top thing. You go to the Ohio State Fairgrounds and you go to the Coliseum to watch events. And you had St. John Arena, obviously, but those were the two. Now you have the Schottenstein Center and you have Nationwide Arena, which are two. But what are you going to do about Ohio Stadium? It's over 100 years old. Can we continue to keep fixing it with the world we're going in, with the professional college football? Do we get a dome one day? I know the Browns and the Haslam family in Cleveland, they want to have a dome. It's crazy, though, when you think about it, that the state of Ohio does not have a dome in it.
Well, hopefully one day we're going to see some of those changes. We're going to need it because more people are coming in, and obviously we're seeing so many tourism dollars. I mean, that's big in of itself, and you've witnessed that. Well,
yeah, and you know, one of the biggest tourism carrots, you might say, is Ohio State football.
Sure, it's a shoe. Everyone's taking a selfie at the shoe.
Everybody wants to come and see the Buckeyes. You know, Ryan Day won a national title. He's now making the round on all the national talk shows. And, you know, it is Ohio State's, if not the biggest, one of the biggest employers in this city.
Sure.
And, you know, it's only going to get bigger. I mean, you look at the footprint they have, and, you know, it's a national name. And then the alumni that are all around the world. I mean, it's the biggest alumni group of anyone. I mean, that's, you know, when we were in Atlanta, all these Buckeye alumni groups. Same thing in Dallas. It's crazy how many
Go Bucks everywhere.
Everywhere. You could go anywhere. Matter of fact, I was in Aruba one day, on vacation, and I just tried something. I was at the beach, and I yelled out OH just to see what would happen, and someone yelled IO back. That happened.
And only to Dom DeBerry.
You can do that anywhere. I'm telling you, you yell out OH anywhere, you're going to get an IO back.
Dom, you are the man. Thank you so much. Go Bucks. We really appreciate your perspective, and certainly we're going to see things go boom with Ohio State.
It is a boom. It's boomtown Buckeyes now.
It is for sure. All right, Dom, thank you. And of course, if you want to see more of Dom and all our sports stories celebrating the Ohio State National Championship win, well, you can download our free 10 TV app, watch it right here on 10 TV Plus, anytime streaming. Well, the solar industry in the U.S. has certainly exploded over the last decade. And this week, we looked at what's being done to maintain the land underneath those solar panels. Well, the employees are sheep. Yes, sheep. You can find sheep on solar farms in about 27 states, from Texas to Minnesota to Massachusetts. Some are being proposed for Central Ohio, right here in Boomtown. And companies say it's more cost-effective than bringing in mowers, and it's also environmentally friendly.
Historically been a reluctance to transition from gas mowing to livestock as vegetation maintenance. We're starting to see wide-scale adoption.
The National Renewable Energy Laboratory says there are roughly 60 solar grazing projects right now in the U.S. That number, of course, expected to grow in the years to come. So we looked into it and found companies in Ohio now using solar grazing, and there's one project now being planned for Fairfield County. Before it gets moving, though, officials are gauging just how much support they can get for it. This week, Carly Dion went to a public hearing where it was standing room only.
Hundreds of people sat for several hours inside the Pleasantville Elementary School cafeteria as people both for the solar project and against it explained their stance. The Eastern Cottontail Solar Project would consist of solar panels that would take up nearly 900 acres within a 1,550-acre project area in Walnut Township. Those in favor of it say the project would create jobs, boost local economic growth, and generate revenue for local schools. Some sheep farmers say it would benefit them as well and see it as an opportunity to keep their farmland for generations to come. Meanwhile, those against it say it poses a threat to local farmers and believe the area is too populated for a solar farm. Others who have farmland bordering the proposed area say it would cause flooding to their crops and damage country roads.
We're excited to bring new power generation to a growing state with growing energy demands, and we're really excited about our plan to keep this land in partial agriculture by having sheep manage the vegetation on our site by grazing the project site after we've completed building it.
I'm opposed to this project because they're planning on putting it on prime farmland. Prime farmland is obviously a resource that we can't replenish. It's something that we only have so much of. We raise corn and soybeans and wheat in this part of Ohio, and we do so because it's the most productive way to use that land.
As for what happens next, an evidentiary hearing will be held in early March. Once that process is complete, the project will be scheduled for a decision at a future monthly board meeting. In Fairfield County, Carly Dion, 10 TV News.
Carly, thank you. And thank you for watching This Week in Boomtown. Don't forget, we also have our 10 TV Plus original Welcome to Boomtown, and you'll see how our stories are really seeking solutions for everyone in Central Ohio. I'm Angela Ann.